Okay, so without further ado, I think we're ready to get going. I would love to, again, NSU Art Museum is featuring this panelist discussion, how Nollywood has sculpted Nigerians, how Nigeria's film industry has defined fashion trends across the world. So we will go ahead and get started. My name is Lisa Quinn. I'm the Lillian S. Wells Education Curator. I would love to introduce first Osahan Akpata. He is our moderator for the panelist discussion, and he is a former McKinsey consultant who's also a writer, producer, and banker. He serves as project director of Ike Ude's Nollywood Portraits, here on view until January 9th at NSU Art Museum in Fort Lauderdale. Osahan is a contributor to magazines and blogs, including Vogue Italia, Forbes, Mail and Guardian, and many others.
And thank you for joining this panel discussion hosted by NSU Art Museum in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in conjunction with the exhibition of select portraits by Ike Ude. We are here as part of the programming around the work of the renowned and critically acclaimed artist Ike Ude. I first met Ike in 2014 when he was introduced to me by a mutual friend. Ike has a reputation for portraiture, and his work is in the permanent collection of museums such as the Smithsonian, the Guggenheim, and the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, amongst others. While he had made portraits of stars such as Isabella Rossellini, Manolo Blahnik, and Rihanna, he had not yet done anything with stars from his country of birth, Nigeria, or indeed the whole continent of Africa. He told me that his bold ambition was to complete a major body of work featuring over 60 Nollywood personalities, and I joined him as project director of Nollywood Portraits, A Radical Beauty, which is a three-part project comprising of a traveling exhibition, a coffee table book, and a documentary film. Two of the portraits from the body of work are part of the exhibition currently running at NSU Art Museum, and I would like to encourage all of you who may be in the Fort Lauderdale area to visit the museum and see this wonderful exhibition. Nollywood is the second largest film industry in the world when it comes to titles released annually. There are around about 2,500 titles released every year, and it has revenues of close to $600 million. The industry employs over 1 million people, and it's growing in its reach and its influence across the world. Now, according to Euromonitor, Nigeria accounts for about 15% of the fashion market in sub-Saharan Africa, or about $4.7 billion in revenues. These are two of my favorite creative industries, and I'm glad to be moderating this discussion at the nexus of both of these sectors. On today's panel, we have 4 professionals who work in Nigeria's film industry and have great insights and perspectives to share with us on this topic. I will introduce them in alphabetical order of their first names. First is Eku Edewo, who's an actor, producer, and TV personality. Next, we have Enyina Nwigwe, an actor, producer, and creative entrepreneur. Then we have Tope Oshin, a multi-award-winning filmmaker. And then finally, we have Yolanda Okereke, a costume designer and wardrobe stylist. With that, let's get into the discussion. My first question goes to Eku and Enyina. What role would you say costuming plays in the definition of the characters you portray? Please, could you share some examples of roles you've played where costuming really enhanced the storytelling? So we'll start with you, Eku.
Hi, thank you for that introduction. Obviously in film, costuming is one of the biggest elements that really contributes to how the visuals are received. And I definitely think, just talking from an access perspective, it does really help when you have costumes that are able to inform the character that you're playing. So I guess off the top of my head, a character that I'm playing right now on Castle and Castle, which is showing on Netflix. I play this character called Neka Amadi, and Yolanda styled styled Nneka this season, and was really able, I think, to give a lot to the character in terms of Nneka is very restrained and she's very elegant and she's very professional. And being able to have that type of clothing really informs how you move as an actor, how you talk as an actor. You know, the way that you respond in professional clothing is very different to how you respond in glamorous clothing or professional clothing. So I really do think that, I don't know, Nneka this season, when I watched her, was a lot softer. And I do think that that also came into play from the type of clothes I was wearing. I was wearing a lot more romantic pieces, and it did really make her feel a lot more girly, and not so steely. There's a character that I'm playing that hasn't come out yet, and she's another sort of professional, but it was interesting that the character was put in trainers all the time. And I feel like that as well changes how a character acts, or because obviously if you're wearing heels, you don't move as easily, you're not as agile, you're not as static. So it gave the character a lot more ease. So I do think it's really important how costuming comes to play. And I do think that what I've seen is that there's a lot more consideration to where, to where the character meets the clothing and how that's important. I think, we're a very glamorous culture. And I think, at the beginning, or let me not say at the beginning, I feel like, a lot of times we just want to portray buffs, let me not say buffs, so you want to show like your best items, right? You want to have the characters always glamorous, but when you have so much glamour all the time, it can hide the character in a way sometimes, and sometimes you just feel like you're part of a fashion show as opposed to sort of tapping into an individual. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eku, for that insight. It's exactly the same experience, I'd say. I like to say art expresses life just like life expresses art. Costuming, set design, those kind of like set up 50% of the job of an actor. If it's right, your mind is right, and you embody the character easier. So I take it very importantly. Giving an example, with a film, a project I've done, which also happens to have been costumed by Yolanda here, the Wedding Party franchise, which is 1 and 2. The first, both of them were really big on showcasing between the diversity of the Nigerian culture, and also the general boisterousness of our fashion culture. Looking at the Yoruba versus the Igbo, dynamic there. You see us how diverse, yet the same we are. So that communicated that, and it couldn't have done that much without the costume. Just the character couldn't have been able to communicate that much, and we all felt a bit more in those spaces because of how right the costumes were gotten. Within the same film project, from my own experience, having played a supporting role in the supporting role part, the first one had me come off as this uptight big brother. And there was really a moment you see me happy or playing with everybody else. It's always, like that. So transitioning into the second part, the director had thought, okay, if we're developing this character beyond to see a bit more of his backstory and who he really is, beyond just being the big brother in the first part, then we should maintain that personality through costumes, which I wasn't aware of. But then on set the first day, the outfit that was chosen for that scene happened to be a gray shirt on black pants, which naturally, when you play the dark plain colors, it kind of like sets a mood for the character, not being such a happy person, So we were about to roll when the producer walked in and saw that, and she goes, "Oh, why is he wearing that shirt? I want something happier, more colorful." And that conversation was had, and we switched. Now, in that moment, the costume had changed the direction of that character for the director, but then it had the new choice played better for the film in general as a vacation, wedding, happy film. So we went instead with the colorful shirts to show a bit more of the other side beyond just keeping him uptight, so we can maintain the happiness and the happy feel of the story. So in that way, costume had redefined the character from day one. And that way, we also were able to capture the right audience, and having the lead person, the pivotal actor in the story, communicate that through what he was wearing, regardless of what he was going through. You know, plain colors would have played and enhanced what he was going through, and it would have been a bit more of a downer for a vacation feel-good film. So in that way, the costuming came through in changing that.
Thanks, Aina. Okay, so this next question is for Tope and Yolanda. Nigeria is home to several extremely talented fashion designers, some of which have even earned international acclaim. What is the relationship like between Nigerian designers and filmmakers in terms of collaboration and work on movies? And what would the ideal relationship be if possible?
Okay, hi everyone. This is Topo again. So, I mean, I was going to ask earlier if Yolanda was going to be on this panel, because doubtless Yolanda is one of the most hardworking people in Nollywood. And most of the projects I've worked on, it has to be Yolanda for so many reasons, because she understands the place of wardrobe design and costume design in filmmaking, you know, because like Aina and Eku, you know, have explained to you from the point of view of actors, it embodies a lot. It takes, it dictates the courage of the actor, it dictates the mood of the scene, it dictates a whole lot of things. In my work with Yolanda, basically, you know, she would ask, okay, director, what is it? What are you trying to do? Who are these characters? How do you want to portray them? You know, and this is where the conversation starts on how do we style them? Because the basic thing costuming does is it gives the character identity. Three people do not dress up the same way, except they are the same type of people. And even while they dress the same way, there's still elements that are different that make them unique. What's their background? What are they going through right now? What's the situation of their life currently? What is their profession? You know, what's their story? Who are they within the body of the story? All of these things come into play in us designing a character and saying, this is the look we're going to have for this character. We draw up things like mood boards, you know, where we actually have styling for them. So Yolanda goes off with, you know, whatever it is that we discussed about who the character is, what their world is, what we're trying to do, what the overarching story is, what their identity is. And we decide, okay, this is what, you know, the character is going to look like and their story is going to be within the film. In relationship of filmmaking and filmmakers with existing designers within the country, sometimes we look at designing or making this clothes from scratch. Sometimes we don't need to involve external or existing designers. When we're dealing with things like school uniforms, in the situation of MTV Sugar, when we're talking about things like, you know, basic clothes that are easy to get, where what we're assembling are just colors or styles or things like that. But sometimes when you have characters who are a bit more defined in their styling, where it's not the kind of thing that you can pick out of any boutique or any shop, then, you know, the costumier or the costume designer can then offer to the production or the producer and say, how about we work with this particular designer who regularly makes, you know, clothes like these, instead of us going ahead to go and make them from scratch. This person, this is their specialty, you know, they work with clothes like this. How about we work with them and partner with them and use them to dress this character? So we've had situations where within an entire film, a designer dresses one character or two characters simply because the way we have styled them in production design goes along with who this designer is or what they usually design. Yolanda and I have worked with designers like Maya Tafo. Maya is very friendly and always very open, you know, to working on film. While he understands the world of film, not every designer at the same time understands the world of film. So, you know, for him, he understands it's all about the character, you know, what the aim is, who the character is. And then he goes into his cachet and says, all right, I have this, I have this, I have that. And then, you know, Yolanda can then decide, all right, we're using one or two or three, or we're using this or this color, that is good and all of that. But yes, there is the place of designers working with us. We've had good ones who have been open. Of late, I also noticed that Tiana, who is also a major designer in Nigeria, has, you know, also supplied and designed a couple of clothes in some films, which is good. So we've enjoyed quite the collaboration with them here and there where it is necessary, but it's not sustainable to have an entire film or an entire show, designed by professional designers, because that's going to be really expensive. But we've had to outsource. Yes, it's been a good idea sometimes where we have particular characters where, they have to make a particular statement and then work in conjunction with existing designers in that aspect. So I'll let Yolanda speak now and give us some more insight on how she.
Oh, hi, Tucker. You said it all. I doubt there's anything for me to say.
I don't go
Yeah.
there with you. We don't discuss with you. So I'm sure there's some other tiny elements.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so in the last, I would say 7 years and counting, I've had a good relationship with different Nigerian designers, because I got to a point in my career where I'm like, the fashion industry is evolving, and the film industry is already where we want it to be and is still thriving. So how about we merge all of this? Just like Tucker said, not everything is dependent on design from scratch or pick from designers. Some things are from the market. So it depends on the character, what we're trying to say. And if we cannot find it off the rack, then we have to design it from scratch for that particular character, based on what the production design is saying, based on the personality of the character and what we're trying to show with this whole collaboration. So the collaboration it's been great. It's a 50-50 thing, because most times these collaborations are also dependent on budget. Not every designer can also do it out of their pocket. So production also has to kind of meet halfway. Okay, how about we collaborate, and then let me pay for the fabric, and then you do the production. So what do I get back in return? Or producer, this person has given so and so and so. What does it amount to? Can they get a mention, or can we do like a little bit of product placement? But product placement for me, if it's not done tastefully, there's no point. Yeah. So we've had a lot. There's so many. There's so many, and I'm trying to. And I work with a whole lot of new, young, hungry designers as well, because I realized that these new young people are extremely creative. And in the film world, there's a film language where I will call you today and I'm like, I need this dress in 36 hours. I need you to turn it out. Yeah, so I've discovered so many young people. I've worked with so many people, from SGTC clothing. She does a lot of beautiful and cara Lady Billionaire, a whole lot of Bibi Lawrence. So depending, like I said, just like depending on what their strength is. So I'm shooting a wedding movie. I have to go to a wedding designer, because you understand my language. It's like we sit down 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This is what I want. This is what I want. Send me the fabric, we choose. Or when am I getting it in a week? Oh, corporate suit. Oh, Maya Tafu. There's David Ware, there's Ty Laurie, there's all these people. Oh, I need a really nice kimono, sense of humor. So the fashion industry is very vast. And I can see now that they're getting comfortable stepping into the Nollywood side and wanting to also showcase their stuff. Because right now, after every movie that comes out on Netflix or in the cinema, in my DM, there's one designer. Oh, please, I need you to use my stuff. And I'm like, it's not like I can't use it. Does it work with the project? Because I don't want to also take advantage of people and their generosity based on, oh, I want you to use my stuff. It has to work with the project. It has to be able to tell the story. It has to be what will transfer what will make the actor understand that I'm not Echo, I'm not Aina, I'm playing Neka, I'm playing this. Yeah. So it's been a beautiful collaboration so far, and it keeps getting better. It keeps getting better.
That's great. So now, this question is for Echo and Aina. Who are your favorite style icons or trendsetters in the industry?
It's an interesting question. I admire a lot of people's style. It's from. So I love R&D style. I know he's a guy, so maybe it's a bit random that I'll pick a guy first. But I love R&D style. I love Genevieve style. And I think I love I love it when when it looks like you are giving life to the clothes as opposed to the clothes are wearing you. And I think that a lot of times fashion, especially really bold pieces, can drown a lot of people out. And I think these are two people that every time I see them, I'm like, okay. I'm enamored by the whole look. I also think Dakore is a really great style icon. Who else? Do you know this? There's so many people that just look fantastic, but I would say I'm going to be attracted to people that I guess that are similar to the way that I dress in a way. I guess that's the vanity sometimes of admiring style icons. You have to see a reflection of yourself a bit in the style that you're admiring. So yeah, I would say those are a few that I really enjoy.
Yes, so it just had to be R&B first. They could well done with that. So he's on my number one list as well. I like what he's doing at 60, how he's pulling off the youthful urban fashion styles. Like Ebuka, of course, we can't touch fashion in Nigeria without talking about Ebuka. I like what he's doing, how he's evolved, how he's not afraid to push boundaries. Of course, the women there, Eku right here is a style icon in her own right as well. I love her style. I love Whiskey Dyer. Yeah, I love what he does. I love what his stylist does. I love Flavor. I love Burna Boy. Yeah. So quite a number of them. Nigerian fashion is amazing. There's just so much to pick from.
Thanks, Aina. Okay, and Yolanda, so what are the fashion aesthetic trends of Nollywood films you've worked in? And is there a common theme running through them?
No. Okay, Echo made a very valid point, and it's one of the problems. I'll start with the problems, now I'll go to the aesthetics. It's one of the problems I have seemed to encounter in the last 2 years, where everyone feels like every film has to be glamorous. So my question is the glamour telling the story? It's not about fashionable pieces or I want to be memorable and all of that. Is it telling the story? So I kind of did like 2 or 3, and that happened. It repeated itself like over and over again, and I was like, nah, that can be it. Then there's no point. You can just go to a boutique, get the clothes off the rack, and put on these people. The story, you can't take away from the story in costume design. Costume design is telling the story. What is this person's background? What is this person? What they like? Every human being has a backstory. Everybody has evolved. So sometimes you want to see a character evolve, and it's you see it in storytelling. So Domitilla was, I can't remember what year Domitilla was shot, but it was such the raunchiness of the film. It told the story, but then we did a little. I would call it a modern version with Oloture. But when I looked at Domitilla and I looked at Oloture, I could see a little bit of how the fashion had evolved, still telling the same story, still the whole prostitution kind of thing. So there are different aesthetics. There's the epic. There's the what they call. What's that one that you did, the Abacha one? What they call this one? Is it biopic? Yes, there's that one. yeah, there's that one. There's modern day storytelling. There's this one is about weddings. So it varies from story to story. Wedding party, everything about it was colorful, beautiful. Wedding. Then sugar played with the lives of young people. So you're looking at the poor people, you're looking at the affluent people. You're going to show the transition, how this person gets to this point. So there are different aesthetics to it. So I'm glad that we're not narrowed and boxed in just into telling glamorous story. We're trying to also tell normal stories that people can relate to, and also show it in production design, and also show it in costume design, and also show it to the actors embodying the characters. So that's why I'm very passionate about costuming. Sometimes I'm like, me and the actors even get into it. I'm like, no, see, why don't you do it like this? Because they also have their own ideas. I have my ideas. The director has the ideas. Once we merge all three, we've told a beautiful story. But there's still some movies I would like to be a part of. So I think I really like to do some more biopics. I find them really interesting and really challenging. And I've dabbled into the epic one. Those ones are nice because I think I've done too much glamour. So let's go into real storytelling. Yes, so we have a whole wide range. And I'm glad to have been a part of a good percentage.
Thanks. So this question is for everybody here, so I guess we'll go one at a time. A recent Vogue article highlighted the style of Nollywood bad boys and girls in the early 2000s, wearing chunky bracelets, oversized sunglasses, stonewashed denim, and some of them have become the biggest style icons among young Nigerians today. How would you say that the fashion sense in Nollywood has evolved since the late 1990s? And do you feel that this style will make a comeback? So let me start with Eku for this one.
So I do think elements of that style are current again. I do think that one thing about Nigerian style is that before it was is that we're very creative. And I think that before it was as accessible, now it's really accessible to import clothes in and get access to clothes. So I think there was a lot more, I mean, it's still unique now, but then you had, it evolved because you're forced to, to create a look that is very much unique to the culture, because it is like taking elements of like America, obviously, because, nobody can escape the West, but you find, there's a Nigerian-ness. I think the way actually that fashion has evolved is that it has become, well, if we're just using Nollywood, it has become very glam. And I mean, everybody is avant-garde to the red carpet. Do you know what I mean? There's no restraints anymore. And I do think it has, and I do think that excess, is obviously a reflection of wanting to show aspiration, to show success, to show, and we also live in an excessive time, right? And nobody does it better than Nigerians. And I just think that when you come to a red carpet now, you're never disappointed by the colors and the shapes and the textures and the overall, it's the Met Gala every time now. And I do think that fashion has also informed fashion on the streets, right? Now I'm at parties, I'm like, what's your job? And she's like, oh, I'm an accountant. And I'm like, well done, girl. Like, and maybe she's seen her favorite actress wear something similar, so, obviously you see these memes all the time where you're like, oh, this is what I wanted and this is what the tailor gave me. I feel, yeah, I do think it has evolved in that way. I think that film will always be a glamorous world, but I do think that Nollywood has taken it to the next level.
Interesting. And Aina, your thoughts on the evolution?
Yes, it indeed has evolved. Like Eku said, you can't escape the Western influence, which has been even more the influence is a lot faster with the influence of new media. And Nigerian art and entertainment has grown over the years. It was first Nollywood that got us the export title, but then music came on and took over. And the more these things happen with new media, the more our culture transports. Even while we introduce the Western culture, there's now a balance of fusion. So now we have tailors who are also becoming superstars. It's a whole ecosystem, and the exchange has been great, which has influenced Nollywood. So now bringing the Western style, which has been on, and now the very globally confident designers from Nigeria, mixing and matching the Western styles with our prints, we have also influenced the Western style, because now you look at pop culture in the US, you see our prints, you see our African prints somehow fused in, and it's a big deal now. Film, PR agents now have a way of using the best dressed title on a red carpet, if it's a kind of film that has a theme or a look, to even make our designers bigger. So everyone takes pictures on the red carpet, posts, tags the designer, and designers are getting calls from people. In Nigeria that we are, we have made it ours, and now the world wants a piece of that pie. So it's amazing. I can only wait to see how much more that influences the world of fashion.
Yeah, I mean, Echo and Ina have said it all. I think the first underlying fact is that Nigerians like to dress up. We are very fashionable people, and we always are dressed for the occasion, no matter what it is. The average Nigerian woman, is in her full makeup, hair nicely done, nails nicely done, and this is just our culture. It's who we are. We're almost always perfect at every point in time. Now, you marry that with the Western influence, and with the fact that we love to dress up. Even when you look at our traditional attires, they're always very colorful. The Igbos with the red popping and everything, it's colorful. The Yorubas, I mean, you want to see a Yoruba event, look at the wedding party, it's all there. It's really colorful. It's one of the things that made the wedding party franchise is very popular. So the overall thing is we're dressy people, and then we have Nollywood in the face of everybody, and everybody's watching these films, as well as watching our red carpet, which is also a big thing, like Aina has said. So beyond the films themselves, what you see on screen, how the characters are dressed, you now turn to the film premieres, which is a mega event on its own. Whenever we have our film premieres, it's like everybody in the country is watching on their social media. You're looking out for hashtags, you're looking out for what Echo is wearing, you're looking out for what this person is wearing, who styled them, what designer is this. And then you see these things being repeated or copied for regular events like weddings. You see weddings, you see regular parties, and then you see red carpets that look like our movie red carpets, where they are copying the same culture of, going the whole 9 yards and everything. And then also, copying from films. A good example is King of Boys. For me, the most outstanding thing for me about King of Boys, about Kemi's King of Boys, is the way that Eniola Salami is styled and dressed. You cannot watch the series and not just, wonder and look at her. Like every time she shows up, she shows up. And that's like a Nigerian thing. If you are somebody, you show up. And, this goes all the way down into the society. It's a way that we measure who we are and what we are. Like what's she wearing, what's he wearing? What's the color, who designed it, what's the jewelry, what's all of that. So everything comes together, as a whole. Nigerians do a lot of Nollywood watching, which is good for us because, I mean, as little as 10 years ago, opposite was the case. There was a lot more watching of foreign productions than our films, but now it is a culture. Before something comes out on Netflix, every Nigerian everywhere in the world, and not just in Nigeria, has seen it and knows every detail, who wore what, what is new. That shirt that Ina wore in something, I want the type, who is the designer, so it's a really good time for stylists like Yolanda, who works on film as well as, for other events like that. It's a good time for designers as well, because they're being tagged, they're being identified, their products are out there in public space and films, on red carpets. And, laymen on the streets are also patronizing them because they want to look like the stars. Everybody wants to look like, the star. Everybody wants to look like RMD. So who is styling RMD? I want that person to be my stylist. So, in that sense, all eyes are on us, and we are influencing the fashion culture of the country, either we like it or not. And it's visible and it's evident. Everybody can see that.
Thanks, Takwa. Great insights there. Yolanda, any thoughts?
Okay, let me just weigh my 2 cents in here. You said a Vogue article highlighted the style of Nollywood bad boys and bad girls with oversized chunky bracelet, stonewash. So that has evolved in Nigeria to what we call the Ote fashion. So I literally am doing once I'm doing a show that has young people, my go-to is actually old Nollywood. I go and I watch all these movies I have of Genevieve, Richard Dominic, Emeka Ike, Ramsey, and I'm like, okay, this. How did he evolve? Just a few things. Maybe like the accessories are modern now, but if you look at it and look at back then, the similarities are not that many. Because back then, they wear like an alternate top, a mini denim skirt, chunky heels. Chunky heels are back. So all that oversized trouser, oversized shirt is actually back because there's a generation that actually that's their trend. So that's like my reference. I just go back to all that old Nollywood. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what the Mekaike looked like again. Okay, can I get something similar? So what has evolved is it's just more fashionable, nicely tailored now. You might be lucky to still get some vintage collection from all of that from that time. And the truth is, Nigerians, we eat fashion, we live fashion, we breathe fashion. Everything is fashion. There's not a bad day. You just have to, you either show up or don't even attend at all.
Okay. So in 2017, when Ebuka, a Nigerian TV personality, wore a burgundy agbada, which is his flowing robe, to the wedding of Nollywood stars Banky W and Adesua Etomi, he caused quite a stir on social media platforms or online media platforms. Social media has grown in influence and several Nollywood stars have followers in the millions. What impact do you feel social media has in spreading the style of Nollywood in Nigeria and across the world? So we'll go around again, starting with Eku.
I mean, I think it goes without saying that social media has been a huge equalizer in terms of being able to create multiple streams of access in all different directions for fashion to move and to travel, because you never know who's picking up on what you're making. You see Nigerian designers stocked in Stockholm, for example. And I think to myself, I wonder how that person got in contact with, and it's because of social media. Now everybody's so much closer, right? You know, someone in Tibet could be like, oh, I love this Nigerian piece. And all of a sudden you're stocking halfway across the world or something, you know? So I do think social media is a very powerful tool. And I do think that it has created a lot of the structural needs, I think, of small fashion designers or small businesses that are trying to get their things out there. Even the dress that I'm wearing is by a small designer. Well, maybe she's not so small anymore in terms of the way her pieces are moving. She's probably wealthier than me at this point. But this dress was made by Dami, and she was a stylist, and she worked at what's that station? Sorry, my mind is blank right now, but a TV station styling, and she started this ethical linen dress line. And during the Black Lives Matter movement, and there was a lot of push for support Black designers, and she was one of the designers that was featured a lot in international magazines. And all of a sudden, if you go to her page, I no longer see Nigerians wearing her outfits. And then all of a sudden you go to her website and the dress that was 30K is now 120K, like, oh, much don't blow, So like, I do think social media has been a huge thing. And I think it's a very valuable asset to the fashion industry.
Thank you. Cool. Let's go with Aina next.
Okay, yes. Social media has been the greatest influence since inception. It's brought the world to this pot. It's like a potpourri of flavors. Whatever your influence is, it's okay. No better time than now, where it seems like there's no more a thing as a fashion faux pas. Anything goes. If it looks beautiful, someone else is jumping on it. And if it trends by a celebrity, it influences the millions of followers, and their minds open up to possibilities of breaking their fashion expressions. So it's just a whole lot going on in that space through social media. Personally, how it affects us here, because of our work, we're always on the red carpet doing one thing or the other. I mean, you want to get dressed by how you're dressed. Packaging, branding is all part of good looks. It's just the first introduction, visual. So we have very good ones that are not known because they have their own little thing going on. Personally, maybe being a creative, I like to be involved when I find the right relationship with a designer. I like to create with them. And that also kind of like led me to an idea to, if I love creating as well, I don't have to be an actor and a designer, but we can collaborate. So you find a designer, You find something you both create, you send out expressions, you carry it, people love it. If they order it, it becomes my collection. So I can have, for instance, my Atafo, blah, 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 Yina collection of the styles. And then we are both exchanging value. I'm carrying the clothes, selling more clothes for him through a different channel, different from what his own expression and brand represents. And we are all winning. You know, also with the whole red carpet thing where the PR firms have themes for events and they put up cash prizes and all sorts of products to be won for the best dressed. And there's that intense competition. Like I said before, people are posting. These days, people don't even attend the event. They create a whole photo shoot and hashtag the event and trend. And sometimes they even win without attending. But guess what? The owner of the event may or may not be mad, but guess what? They have further made the event trend, further added to the fashion space by making it more popular, because naturally the algorithm goes with whatever the hashtag is for the day. So every fashion designer is seen across the world. Anyone who's logged in or connected to Nigeria or Africa somehow sees something pop up on the explore page, and it begins to, the exchange happens. And somewhere, somehow in Asia, we are influencing the culture. They are influencing us, but we may not all have it in detail, but it is happening, and minds are a lot more open to things. Now we have prints, suits. You can make prints with kente, for instance, African prints, things that were not very okay before because we were a bit more conservative. So social media has opened up minds, and now the world is ours for the taking.
Thanks, Aina. Tokwe, any perspectives on this?
Well, the power of social media in Nigeria right now is huge. It's enormous, in the sense that it's made Nigeria, it's made the world, a global village, but particularly in Nigeria, it's huge. Everything is on social media, and it's no surprise how much this has further pushed our fashion culture within Nollywood and within Nigerians. It's like literally, like I mentioned earlier, when there's a movie premiere, everybody's on Instagram, and that's the truth. Even people at the premiere themselves are rarely watching the films. Everybody's like, what's who wearing, who has arrived, what, it's like that. It's an unspoken culture. Everybody's following the hashtags of the event or the movie. And sometimes you wonder, do they even know what the movie is about? Is anybody watching this movie? Everybody's watching what everybody's watching. And that is the power of social media. It's given us we don't have to put on the TV anymore. We can just log onto our Instagrams or log onto Twitter or whatever and see what is going on, what people are wearing. So, you just have to put the power of social media, side by side, to have created this power and these effects that we have. You want anything to go out like that or trend or be viral, just put it in social media, attach to it a very popular hashtag, or even create one that becomes popular by just your using it. You can also see the impact of that through what we now know as influencers that are really, really, really huge. You want to sell something, you want to publicize your movie or whatever. We now have professional influencers, and they have the following, they have the power. People listen to them, people look at their channels. So it's as easy as them saying, watch Wedding Party or watch New Money, and people are on that, and following it and everything. So it's been a very useful and powerful tool, and has played a big part in the culture of Nollywood and fashion culture in the past couple of years, about 5 years now, and it keeps growing. It's like an unspoken entertainment network is what we have.
Thank you, Tokwe. And then Yolanda.
The power of social media. Social media has been extremely helpful for me because I at some point last year realized that when I'm trying to put a mood board or a lookbook together, I can't get images. And mostly when I'm images of Black people in these clothes that I'm trying to show the production or the director and producer that this is what I want the artist to wear. So I go to Instagram. I type Eku, I type Aina, I type Denrele, I type Denola Gray, Nobuligwe, Ebuka, and I pick all this. I pick all these the pictures on their pages that relate to what I'm trying to say, and then I build my mood board. So that's kind of like my Google search to get the images of what I'm trying to show the director. If I didn't have social media, I would spend much longer time getting these images to be able to make that mood board possible. The case of Ibuka and the famous Agbada, well, that's the height of social media influence, and it did change the game of fashion and social media. And relating social media to costume design and what I do, 50% of the designers that I work with, I met on social media. 25% of the 50%, I've never met them before in person. I just send a DM, we get chatting on WhatsApp, emails, get the job done, I pay you, give me what I need, and that's it. Some of them I met 3 years after dealing with them. So it's kind of like a tool to make, to actualize my dream, to make me be able to make the movie, be able to make the costume. It's like a playground for me. So I asked myself at some point, I was like, if there wasn't social media, how would you even be able to know that this person does this thing, or this person knows someone that does this thing? So it's a massive, massive tool that has been really effective in influencing. It's been really effective in filmmaking, because even with fashion, we have influencers that do the whole fashion influencing on their page, where designers are like, oh, I'm going to give you 10 dresses, you can keep 5, I just need you to just do 2 posts for me. Or when I do a movie and somebody, a designer says that, oh, please, can you help me talk to Rita Dominic? I'd like to make something for her. And all of that is social media. They don't have my number, but they can find me on Instagram, they can find me on Twitter, send me a DM and I'll respond. So it's a very innovative and monetary tool, and I've benefited from it.
And just to say one more thing about the Ebuka Agbada, if we're talking about how that Agbada went across the world, so a friend of mine, Oti Fagbenle, I know, was directly influenced by that Agbada when he was like, he wants to wear trad, and yes, I was like, then the only person's page to look at if you want to wear trad on the global stage is Ebuka's, and he ended up wearing a modern Agbada to the Emmys. So that is a direct influence of, you know, somebody wearing something, social media picking it up, and, you know, another of our Nigerian British actors wearing it on the global stage at the Emmys this year. So there you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. From randomly in my DM, I see a random name. I'm like, I've seen this. I opened the page. I'm like, I've seen this guy before. I don't remember his name, but he was in one of these Marvel movies that I don't know if they still make the movie. And then he's like, oh, I saw something. I saw Royal Hibiscus. Canada Cody was wearing something. I'd like to have that. And I'm like, okay. Then I'm thinking, how am I going to, I'm on a movie set, how am I going to make it happen for this guy? I'm like, okay, you know what? This is the designer's handle. How about you send him a DM? This is his WhatsApp number. You can go on his page, you check. So it makes the world go round. It just makes our life easier. And the customer is satisfied.
Yes, very true. So Yolanda, you know, when I watch period pieces such as October 1 and 76 on Netflix, I'm often curious about the challenges of costuming and set design. You've worked on some of the leading films in Nollywood, as everybody has called your name here today, as working with them. Can you describe for us the practical realities of costume design in Nollywood?
In Nollywood, the practical reality, it's difficult. I had the opportunity last year to be on a panel with Ruth Carter, the costume designer for Black Panther. And to be honest, the difference is not so far apart in terms of what the limitations are in Nollywood and in Hollywood. I still went ahead. I saw some show called Rain on Netflix and I enjoyed it. And I saw Dynasty, apparently was the same costume designer, reached out to her on Instagram, and everybody faces the same challenge because there's something she's posting on her page about how the recognition and the accolades are not actually given to costume designers. So it's extremely difficult because, first of all, we don't have enough photo banks. So when you have a photo bank, it's easy for me to get my reference from there. So the time to research, it's a lot of time. And then the time for this film to actually happen is not enough time. So you don't have enough time to do your research because you have deadlines. So for example, I get a script and I'm like, oh, when are we filming in 4 weeks? How many casts do we have? Over 12 named casts. And I'm like, are you serious? And these are 12 different people. You have to make sure they have their individual personality translated in what they are wearing. Then you look at the budget. Budget's always a big problem. So that's where the collaborations come into play, where I go and meet the designer and I'm like, okay, please, I'd like you to like a partner with you on this. This is what I have. What can you do for me? And then we come to an agreement. So movies like 76 and October 1, those are expensive movies to make. Once you're making a period piece, it is very expensive because you're trying to recreate what has already happened. It's much harder than it just being a fresh story, modern day story that you're just going with what you find, because you have to make sure it looks like what it looked like in 1976. You have to make sure it looked like what it looked like in 1960. So it's really tasking. I didn't work on those projects, but I can, just watching it, I can tell how much work went into that. I remember when we shot the CEO, it was a Killer at Lion movie. Oh, it was really, that was a hard film because we were shooting far away across water. So you're across water, you're out of the city. So anything you do not have, you are in trouble because you would have to cross water for about 35 minutes to get to land, be able to get something and then come back. So it in Nollywood, it's not like it's the production's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just, it will evolve over time. I would say we're trying, but those are the limiting factors. Then, but when it comes to period pieces, biopics, or those are really hard. I've had to turn 2 down because I didn't have time, and I said I'm not going to do a nonsense, a shitty job just because I want the money or I want the credit. If I don't have enough time to do my research and be able to put something good that people will say, oh, this is fantastic, then there's no point. Because watching Dynasty, the first time I saw Dynasty, I didn't even know Dynasty was an old show. I thought it was a modern show. Then I went and I saw the old show and I saw what they did in the evolution of the fashion. Back then, Dynasty of that time was really fashionable. So they just brought modern day fashion into telling that same story. And I'm like, okay, this is actually beautiful fashion and storytelling. Same thing with Rain. Rain is a biopic about something that really happened, though it has a picture as part of the whole storytelling. But if you look at the costume, you can just see what the modern twist that was put here and there and all of that. Look at a show like Bridgerton, that's a period piece. So you can imagine how, when I heard the budget of a Bridgerton show, because I happened to have met one of the actors, and I'm like, are you serious? How much prep time did you guys have? And he's like, I'm going to take a picture of what the warehouse looks like, where we store, where all these costumes are stored. It was remarkable. It was incredible. Even like Black Panther, how long it took to get every single thing. So those kind of projects are quite expensive. We will get there. We're doing great so far because I keep forgetting the name of this one, A9 and Abacha one. I really want to see that one because 76 got me excited. So when I saw that, I like that. I really like that one. I liked everything about it. I'm looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that because I feel like we should tell more of those kind of stories because it's part of history. It makes you go and then dig deeper. Every time I have to watch a biopic, a period piece, I go back and start on Google. I look at a book that tells me more about it. So Nollywood is on. We're there. We're on the good path, and the budget will come, and the big boys will come and put in the budget for us to tell our stories the way we want to tell it.
Great, thanks. So now speaking about storytelling, Tokwe, I was very impressed by the scenic beauty of Up North when I watched the movie. And you've been involved in making several films and TV series in Nigeria, including MTV Sugar. Can you describe for us what your approach is to aesthetics and costuming in your storytelling as a filmmaker?
For me, production design is very important, it's key. It's you're trying to tell a story, you have to create the entire world and you have to make it believable. Every story has its own context, which is the beauty of production design, which is where production design comes in. So you have to be able to create that. You're not just telling the story, but you have to be able to create your characters and the story within a particular world, which exists within a particular time, with particular people. So we are talking production design, we're talking about the sets, we're talking about the props, we're talking about the clothes they're wearing, which is where costume designing comes in. We're talking about all of these different things, the environment that the actors play in. So for me, this is the first place that I go in designing the story. There's a script, a story that needs to be told. Where is the story situated? Is it a particular geographical location? Is it one? Is it two? What are the differences between these two places? Like you mentioned up north, that was the first challenge of up north. It's a story that happens in two different, very different parts of Nigeria. And, very different in terms of culture, in terms of the people, and even geographically, they are far. That was the first challenge we had. So, for me, it was what are the similarities and what are the differences that we have? And truth is, we really do not have a lot of similarities between Lagos and Bauchi State, which is up north. The differences are in the religion, and also that religion, affects the dressing, particularly when you're talking about Islam. Islam is, has become a culture on its own beyond it being a religion or a belief system. And that had to be incorporated into everything that we did. We're telling a story about young girls who are into athletics, who do some running. How are we going to see these girls on a racetrack while keeping the sensitivities of the religion intact, keeping the sensitivities of the northern Nigerian culture intact without, when you're telling a story, you want it to be relatable. You want people to see themselves in the story, and that's how they can empathize and follow the story. If there's a disconnect, you have lost your audience, and there's a suspension of disbelief. So that is always the challenge at the point of developing, which is all that we do in the pre-production process. There is no hurry to jump on set and shout action or start shooting. We have to set all of these processes up before it is time to film. So you're carefully designing and researching, what would people from the North wear? What do they wear? What can we design specially for the purpose of this film that is relevant, that works, for our story and for the culture as well. And that's part of what we looked at in designing the sports outfit for the girls. We came up with some sort of hybrid thing because they have to be covered up, So you see them, we came up with something that is smart, but at the same time, is fully covered up. It's like leotards that are long, the tops are, like all the way to the knee, and then they're wearing the leggings all the way to their ankles, and then they have their head covering as well, which is in line with the religion while we're telling the story. It's basically a story of empowering the girl child, encouraging, education of the girl child. So you want to do this and you don't want to put people off. Basically, our message is allow young girls fly, allow them stay in school, allow them go to school, allow them, if they want to do all these other things like athletics or, whatever their interests are, allow them. So if we're preaching that, we have to be careful to not to insult or make them feel slighted. So that was the one challenge in designing up north. Also, one thing that I considered in the design also was the color in both spaces and what was happening in the story. Now, the protagonist that we're following, which was Basi, had a very negative experience in Lagos, but found himself up north in Bauchi. So basically, what I discussed with my designers is I want to make Bauchi look as attractive as possible, because I want my audience to empathize with the protagonist. I want them to follow his story. I want them to feel the way he feels. So in putting the production design together, it also went into the camera language as well. You would recollect that everything that was shot in Lagos were really tight shots, was very claustrophobic. There were lots of, close shots. And in color, we designed most of Lagos to be in hues of purple and yellow, sort of doubly layered to represent the royalty of Bassi's family, but also to depict the coldness. In post-production, it helped us to be able to tweak the colors and make Lagos feel cold. So if you watched it, you'd find that every time we went to Lagos, the pictures looked slightly cold and almost off-putting. You don't really want to stay there for so long. But when you get to Bauchi, it's colorful, it's bright. We had oranges. Our color theme for Bauchi was orange, teal, and red. So you find that most of the costumes that we designed, that we picked for that purpose, had all those three colors. So in post-production, we could manipulate the colors, make it look nice and bright. We had a beautiful cultural festival, the Durbar, which is full of a lot of colors, up there. So that's basically, those are the not subtle psychological elements we put into that film, or that we plug into films to make you feel the way we want you to feel. And that's where my job as a storyteller, as a director, comes in, to say, how do I want my audience to feel? And then direct my costume designer, my set designer, to say, this is how I want my audience to feel. I want to use these colors to lead them to feel this way. And that's pretty much what we did with a film like Up North, to direct your feelings and just make you fall in love with Bauchi. And I don't think that there's anybody that I've seen that has said, oh, I've watched Up North, that haven't said, is Bauchi really that beautiful? I really want to go to Bauchi. Oh, Bauchi is so lovely. And that's part of our work. That's what we did. And in that regard, it was successful to make you feel that way. So in terms of production design, those are the things that I look at. The identity of the characters. Characterization is key. Characterization is key. I've just talked about how it affects the entire story itself. That's an example. Then when you're talking about characterization, who is this character? Is this person a nice person? Or is this someone I want my audience to like? Is this someone I don't want my audience to like? Aina talked earlier about the choice of a costumer in putting him in colors in a scene where he was putting gray, and then the producer came and said, no, I want it to be a happy scene. Colors also play a very important aspect in character design. When I worked with Yolanda on In Line, and we designed the character that Chris Atto played, we did not want the audience to like this character, but we did not set up the story in such a way that you knew that the guy was bad from the beginning. We didn't want to be, if throwing that, into your face would mean the whole story is gone. So what we did is to put it there subtly from the beginning. He was a two-faced character. So we designed him to always wear only two shades of colors, and there was always black in it. So it would either be black and gray, or black and very little white, or black and some, silver. It was always like that. You just felt that there's something about this guy I really don't like, but I don't know why. It's because of how we dressed him. Now, the character that Adeswai Tommy played, on the other hand, who is our protagonist, who started out the story looking like the victim, and we later discovered that, she was in control all along. We put her in pastel colors because we wanted you to like her. From the moment you see her, she's in, nice looking pastel greens and peaches, and she looks soft in the hair, everything was soft. The colors, all the colors that Yolanda got us were pastel colors. You just look and you like her, and you don't know why you like her. And you just keep rooting for her, like, okay, I want her to win. Oh, what's wrong with her? You follow her story. So these are some of the ways that I use costume design and production design to tell the story when characters are not talking. Because for me, the whole world itself is 95% of the storytelling beyond what the characters actually say. When you look at them, how do you feel? What do you see? Do you believe the world? What emotions? So we use it to try to show the mood, to set the mood also for a scene or for a character. Sometimes when people are not happy, they don't necessarily dress up or, wear the best things in their wardrobe. That's where costume design comes in, where you want to show the culture of a people, of a person, we use the costume design to show that when you want to bring home the characterization, like I talked about earlier, I mentioned King of Boys and Eniola Salami. That's how I would work as well. You're looking at a larger than life character. Sometimes you dress them that way so that every time they come on screen, the audience feels like, oh, this person is a bit too much, but then you get it that this is who they are. So I mean, those are some of the ways that I use production design and costume design to tell my story in a subtle way, but it's in your face, but you don't see it, but it's all part of the world of the storytelling and gives you the entire full experience as, you should have it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Tokwe, for that. Great insights. And I'm learning a lot about what people do in film and how they actually make me feel a certain way when I'm watching a film. So that's great. All right, so we've come to the final question, which is for everybody here. What would you say the future holds for fashion in Nigerian film? And what can we expect to see in the coming years? So let's start with you, Tokwe, and then go around to Yolanda.
I feel like the future is very bright for fashion. It's actually very bright right now. At the point that Yolanda and I worked together for the first time, that was Journey to Self. That was 2010, I think, or so, about 11 years ago. At that time, it was very, a very testy place, at the point where people really didn't understand in that sense. The movie industry was going through an evolution into the cinema, which had been dead for so many years. So we're starting to make films in a different way. And, people didn't understand it. When moving from the video VCD era and DVD era into this whole new era where we're sending out films to film festivals, films are going out internationally. And so the whole thing was evolving. And I'm sure for someone like Yolanda, going to designers and saying, I'm working on a film, I'm designing, give me this and this and this. They'll be like, film, what was that? Are you, it was, it was a totally alien idea, but now she has people in her inbox, bombarding her and offering and pushing stuff in her face, like just feature my quotes on the film. Now, I think everybody has gotten some good understanding and exposure to the power of film, to how much it can do for you commercially, how much exposure it can give you, the reach, the sheer reach of it, beyond the immediate monetary gratification. I'm sure that 90% of these people that harass Yolanda, that they want their things showcased in the film, are not asking for anything upfront because they know, the far-reaching effects of that. People wanting to know who designed this cloth. I want that. How many people across the world are going to be reaching out to you? So it's like free advertisements, and designers, people are beginning to realize the power of film, the reach of it, and how much they can do with it beyond immediate gratification. Even music, you have your song used as a soundtrack in a film, it goes really far. It increases your listens, your streaming increases, and all of that. So as the world is becoming a smaller global village, the power of media is growing, the power of film is growing, and people are realizing that. And I feel like, it's going to be a mega explosion. We're going to need like 1 million Yolandas. We're going to need like more and more designers, to service the industry, because everybody can see the power. The metrics are there, the results are there. It's visible for everybody to see. So up is the only way, I see it going. It's grown in leaps and bounds between 11 years ago and now, and it keeps going. I see it just exploding, like a massive explosion in the nearest future and moving forward.
Thanks, Tokwe. And then Yolanda?
Oh, wow. The future for fashion in Nigerian film is beyond what I can explain here. I know I'll just list like 2 films, what the fashion did with those movies. King of Boys 1. After King of Boys 1 came out, everybody wanted to know what are these levels, who are these levels wearing, who made this dress. Like I would literally get the pictures in my DM, like, oh, I want this dress, I want that one, I want this one Eniola Salami wore. But because also the film was created, the costuming in the film was created to also drive the fashion as well. That affluent people also like to look good, and they also wear things that are expensive and classy. So in filmmaking, you can't cheat with that. So that definitely has to happen. And I remember when I had to start talking to designers for Adiswa's wardrobe, one designer comes and she's like, how many outfits do you need? I'll make it for free. Just give me the designs, give me the colors. Like Adiswa, I think she can carry it very well. And Adiswa actually did embody every outfit. Another one now is Castle and Castle. There's a whole lot of people. Oh, this jacket, this suit that Eku wore, I like it. This one that Dakore wore, I like it. So that already shows that with our film, we're already driving a narrative of fashion for people to see it, like it, and want to buy it and want to wear its clothes and feel like these people that they saw on screen. Yeah, and I know we shot a while back, but it came out on Netflix last year, and I still had some people say, "Oh, I like this suit that Chris Atto wore. I like this skirt that this or what." I'm just like, ain't so shot that from a while back. I don't think those boutiques even have those things, and it's all in how we're able to tell the story. So how compelling was this character? Because putting them in the right clothes that tell what that allowed them to translate and portray what they're supposed to also drives that narrative. So as much as you're admiring the clothes, you're understanding why this person is dressed like this. So a character might be, I don't have money, but I just have to look good because I have to walk into rooms where I should command power and authority. So when you do that and the audience are able to connect to that, it makes the storytelling beautiful. Like we just concluded a Netflix original Blood Sisters. And I was say recent times is one of the most stressful projects I've had to work on because it tasks my brain a lot because it's this big family and then every personality is strong and you don't want one person sitting in a room of 6 people getting lost in there. So it took a lot for me. It took a lot of commitment with designers and timelines and all of that. And I know that once that one comes out, it's going to be another, because even on set, the moment the matriarch comes out, everybody's like, hey, this is where the whole budget of the film went into. And the moment I got that reaction from the crew, I was already excited for what the audience are going to give back when they see it, because the crew just seeing that means that you've done your homework. You've been able to communicate how powerful this person is. That's one of the things I liked about King of Boys series. Like Aniola had the comeback, and when anybody is trying to do a comeback, there's always a bold fashion statement that goes with that as well. So for fashion and film in Nollywood, it's actually really explosive, really explosive. Like there's barely anybody I talk to now that is not ready to say, okay, even if it's just one outfit, I'll make the outfit, because there was a wedding scene and I wanted a particular wedding dress. And she's like, this dress is going to cost X amount. I'm like, I don't have that on the budget. She's like, what do you have? Okay, you know what? I'll make it at what you have, use it and bring it back. Then after the project, I'm like, I don't think I want to give this back to you because I don't want anybody to wear it. It's one of those kind of dresses that a bride can snatch and wear. It takes away from the film. So there's also that part of collaboration that you also need to curtail. So you don't have normal people, the viewers, already wearing the clothes before the movie comes out. I feel like it takes away. I don't even like for the actor to replicate a design or a style because it was created for the character you were playing. So it's always original and more organic if you just keep it that way. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more collaborations. I'm looking forward to a whole lot, not just in Nigeria. I'm trying to also explore out of some designers in London, some people in Dubai, as much as we can lay our hands on.
Finally, Eku.
I guess finally, just to say, I guess what I hope, I'll say what I hope that the position of fashion becomes in films I do hope that it becomes more of a complete experience for fashion designers. I think we have very, 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 very talented fashion designers, but obviously, like Yolanda was saying before, it's not really the finance a lot of the times is not there to be able to employ, or for these fashion designers to get involved in a really tangible way, and create pieces that are, just for the film, that each piece, costs like so much, like in the same way, like you had, I don't know, Prada for The Great Gatsby, or Rodarte for Black Swan. What else? Givenchy and Audrey Hepburn films, where you get designers that bring like a must, like are able to apply and maybe do 40 outfits for a film or 30 outfits for a film, and are able to be part of bringing their own creative process to developing characters and the worlds. Because I do think that some fashion designers are some of the greatest artists, and it'd be nice to be able to find a place for them in film. But I think right now it's not as affordable. For them, it's not an affordable venture. And it would be nice to see that as the budgets get bigger, that we see that, because I do think that you'll get to create more iconic moments and in fashion sort of history, and you'll get to document a lot more of these pieces that maybe may not make it because they're too precious to get in there, and are just so starkly different from everybody else that it doesn't merge with the story or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, like, it'd be great to see fashion designers a lot more involved in film, and I think that's where it's going.
Thank you very much, Eiko. And that is it. That's a wrap for this panel. I just want to say thank you very much to all of you for participating in this and contributing such great insights. It's been quite a good conversation.
Fantastic to watch and to see everyone's great, thorough answers. Like you had mentioned, Osahan, it really informed me of some of the behind the scenes configurations of how films are made, and how the people producing the film want us to feel a certain way based on fashion choices. I think it was really amazing, and you can definitely see the connection between Ike Ude's portraits and all of the amazing points brought up in this conversation. So thank you everyone for taking part in that. Right now we have a few questions. We would love to have participation from some of our panelists. So I don't see any that are addressed to anyone in particular. Perhaps Osahan, you can help me with that, but I'll just get going, and I'll ask away some questions for you that have been brought to our attention. The first question I think we got was from Sue, who asked if the Nollywood film industry use mostly local seamstress or tailors. I think Yolanda, if you're around and are available to answer that, I think that's a good one for you.
Okay, it's kind of mixed. Yes, I do use, we use local tailors because you also want to think about the budget. The budget is not always very, very big. So sometimes the budget doesn't allow you to use like the big designers or the big brand names. So you might want to source the local tailors around that still get what you're trying to achieve. And they might also be able to turn it out faster. So yes, a couple of local tailors and seamstresses always come through. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. It's a good question. We also received another question from Majid, who is in Ghana, and Majid asked, do we make barely do we make superhero movies in Nollywood and Africa? Black Panther was purely a Nollywood kind of story. Is there a reason why we're not venturing into superhero stories besides budget? And Osahan, you answered this really great. If you wanted, I don't know if you want to also speak it out, and we can ask someone else too. Osahan?
I can say something about it, even though Tokwe can probably speak more about it as a filmmaker dealing with it every day. But I think the genres are expanding, right? We've seen a movement away from only the same type of film over and over again to people trying to do different things. I think a notable one was King of Boys that came out recently on Netflix. So we would see more genres coming out. Yes, some have been made, maybe not so good quality. Budget is a factor, but I think writing is also a factor, right? Someone coming up with a story that can resonate well, that is a superhero movie in Nigeria. So I think when we get a combination of more people trying, because Nollywood has evolved, right? We've had films come out that were maybe not so good in the past, and then you start seeing people make them better as time progresses. So similarly, I think that as more people attempt to make a superhero movie in Nollywood, we will see the type that would resonate well enough and do reasonable numbers. I don't know if anybody else would like to speak to that. Okay.
I think basically you said it all. It's budget is number one. I mean, even if you got a good script and it's all nice and flowery and all of that, if you don't have the appropriate budget to make it, it would simply be tasteless. And that's why everyone is such a big fan of Black Panther, because they have the budget. You can dream a world on your script, but you need to be able to execute it properly as well. So if you're not able to commit to it, which is why you've not seen that much from us, then we simply will not make it, because if we don't make it good, you will not watch it. Yeah.
Understood, and fair enough. Like all. There was another question asked by Sue Girardi Sweeney. She asked if there were. We know the Nollywood Awards come around. Is there a red carpet at Nollywood similar to Hollywood, and where could you point us in the right direction to view some of the Nollywood fashions on a red carpet? Yolanda?
Oh yes, Nollywood is really big on premieres. So when it comes to the red carpet, we don't joke at all. Where can I point you? You might be able to find some on bellaniger.com, Style Vitae. There are a couple of websites and a couple of blog sites that really do carry a whole lot of pictures from red carpet premieres from the Nollywood movies. Because of the pandemic, most people have like pulled back on doing the premieres. So you have less people coming out for the red carpet. But typically Nigeria, like, it's such a big deal. Like, fashion is like our food as well. So even it's gone beyond just red carpets for movie premieres or shows or whatever. Most of the premieres are now have a theme. So it's almost like, okay, for this theme, we're going like African glam. For this, we're going like Met Gala kind of style. For this, we're going this and that. There was a premiere 2 months ago, and everybody had the same fabric, but different styles. So that is how grand we go with our red carpet for our events and fashion shows and all of that. So we do, it's a big thing. It's a big thing in Nigeria.
Great, thank you for that. We'll definitely have to take a look. There was another question by Sue also. She said she liked what Enina said earlier about the color of the clothing and it setting a mood for the scene. Does this ever happen during filming and they reshoot a scene with a different color of costume just to change the mood or feeling of the scene? Have you ever been in this situation, Enina?
Yes, that would be my experience with the wedding party, like I stated earlier. However, I have never experienced where it's like we're called back on set because the color of a scene did not work. It's never happened that we're called back, but it's happened that direction can change in the moment. And just like the wedding party instance, there was no wrong choice. It was just the direction that was chosen. Both of them could have told the story, and it's the storyteller's job to do, and the audience consumes what they're fed. So it was this or that, but this covers a bit more of a holistic approach to the storytelling, and the general feel that we want to convey, not factoring in other elements like Dubai as a location which had to be sold through the film. It's all the exchange, all part of that. So you don't want to bring people to Dubai and the lead character whose eyes you're seeing Dubai through, or whose situation you are experiencing Dubai through, is always down and sad and gloomy because he looks dark. You get what I mean? So there's all of that coming together to make that decision. So yes, it's a very important. Colors communicate and do a lot more than just what our eyes see visually.
That's great. Great answer. Thank you, Anina. I have another question for Eku. Do you have any advice to a young person looking to emerge into the world of film, or production, or anything behind the scenes? Could you give us
in Nollywood, or
in Nollywood? Yes.
in Nollywood? I think like any film industry, you just have to start working. Like if you want to work in Nollywood, you just have to start working in any job that you can find within the industry. When I started working, I was working as a producer's assistant, and I think that a lot of people I don't know if they're afraid, or they just think they'll get stuck doing a job they don't want to do, but they want to be in a different position. But what I found is that any position is valuable in the Nollywood film industry, or in any film industry. Like any job that is film centric is really valuable, because you only become really, really, truly fantastic at what you do, particularly in Nollywood, if you have as much breadth of skill as possible, because a lot of times you have to be responsible for understanding a lot more than you would traditionally be responsible for in other markets, just because that's the nature of Nollywood. Is sometimes you just don't have as much experienced people, so therefore you find yourself taking on or teaching yourself how to do things. So I would say getting into Nollywood, just look for people that you feel that you can work with, work for, and just not have any sort of airs and graces about it. How did I get work? I wrote a list. I Googled all the different people that were making content, and I met the secretaries, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And then they're like, hey, there's an audition. And that's how I got into Nollywood. So I think that do the work, do the research, and just be willing to take anything. That would be my advice. Like, not have any, just be open. Be open. Everything is valid.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Be bold. That's what I heard. Tope, do you also have some recommendations for young persons looking to break out into the field?
Yeah, it would basically depend on what they're trying to do within the industry. Are they interested in acting? Are they wanting to tell the stories themselves? Do they want to write or whatever? That would by and large depend on how they would get in. Funny thing was, back in the day, the easiest way to get in was through acting, irrespective of what you wanted to do, either you wanted to direct or write or whatever. The easiest entry into the industry was through acting, and that was as simple as going for auditions. You just keep going and you get a role, no matter how small. Like Eku said, don't reject anything, just get in there, just be seen, just interact with the industry, and from there you grow. So it's usually the first thing I tell actors as well when we say, oh, I want to act, I love acting, can you cast me in this? Or I said, you need to do your work first. Like Eku said, there is your responsibility of doing your research, search for auditions and go for auditions. You're not going to be picked for everyone, but keep going, keep showing up. Sometimes these spaces might not get you the work immediately, but get you the networking. It exposes you to the industry. You meet somebody who knows somebody who's doing something, and basically that's how you get in there. So there is no easy way to doing it, or expecting that I get into a producer's DM and then they're going to cast me in the lead role in the movie. It very rarely happens like that. You have to do the work, get seen, be known, jump in, be willing to take anything, be humble. And then, usually hard work pays off when it comes to, getting work in Nollywood. You have to do the work.
Thank you. Great answer and sound advice. I'll go to the next question that I have here from Gina Gendry. How do you integrate traditional costume outside the wax imported from Netherlands and modernize it? Is that a fashion aesthetic that is thought, or is just an intuitive idea based on the culture of some that lead the country?
So aside from Vlisco fabrics, how do you basically bring culture into what you're wearing?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, I think there are a lot of fashion designers that are exploring, lots of different traditional fabrics, whether it be adire or ashoke or textures that reflect the landscape or give off a feeling of I guess Nigerianness or Africanness, and they find interesting ways to weave stories into that, or to modernize, or to make it make sense in a global context. And I do think that these designers are directly inspired by the environment that they're in. I think if they were in any other city, they'd be creating a different vibe. But I do think that Nigerian fashion has a very unique twist to it. It's colorful, it's textured, it's bold. It's always telling a story as well. I find that even with the modern prints, there's always the art of storytelling that very much is like the Ankara fabrics, where you hide stories in what you wear. And I think we're storytellers, and it's interesting how that even comes out in our clothing. And I think if you look at the Nigerian designers that are making clothes now, like whether it be Emi Casbid or Lisa Folawiyo or Mahio, if you just do the research of looking at what the young designers are doing or saying, whether that be I Am Isigo, who else, Kenneth Ize, Za, you'll see that the clothes do really have a sense of identity that is, that has moved beyond Vlisco.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was all the questions I have for today. I just want to say thank you, a big thank you to everyone for informing us and being a part of this fantastic panelist talk. Thank you, Osahan, for moderating a terrific panel. And on behalf of NSU Art Museum in Fort Lauderdale, we thank you so much for doing this. And that's all that I have for today. If anyone.
I just wanted to say thank you to NSU Art Museum for hosting this. I think it's been a fantastic conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing it online, and I'm sure people will refer to it into the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sahan. And please feel free to check out our website and take a look at Ike Udi's work online, or if you're in the South Florida area, please come by to visit the museum. Thank you again so much. We look forward to continuing the conversation about Nollywood and seeing its presence in everyday life.